Well, welcome to another edition of My Life in Football, and it's my real pleasure to say that joining us today is Nick Ironton. And Nick, it's a pleasure to have you on, sir. And I know it's been a bit of a tough season for you and a bit else, but I mean, how are
you? I'm really good, to be honest. Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster towards the end of the season, but once I made my decision, I feel a lot better in myself. I feel a lot better towards the players that played for me. And just it's quite nice to have a bit of time off, really. So had a few weeks off and, just relaxing.
So, Nick, I mean, we always start this show off with the same question, and apologies for anybody out there if it bores you with the same question, but it's always interesting to find out. So, I mean, Nick, how did Nick first get involved in football in the first place? So going right back, how was it you first got involved?
Well, I was born in North London, so I went to school in East Finchley, and just basically I just played for the school team, which was quite a good school team at the time. And then I got spotted by a couple of scouts and asked me to go for a few trials. Then I went to secondary school at the time. Played for a representative game, then I got chosen to play for Barnet, and then got chosen to play for Middlesex schools, which was quite a good honour in them days, and then started playing about 11 or 12 and went to one game, had a really good game, got 5 or 6 goals, and then went home we had a little flat in East Finchley at the time. I went home and there was about 10, 15 scouts there all trying to get into my mum and dad's little flat. Asked me if I wanted to. And my mum was giving them all a cup of tea because my mum and dad, they come from the East End originally. They knew nothing about football. They just knew their boy was half decent footballer. So they all turned up, and my mum took a little slight advantage to the QPR scout, and I ended up signing for schoolboys at QPR when I was 11.
I mean, how did that feel though, being that sort of age and seeing all those sort of professional clubs there wanting to sign a signature? I mean, how did you feel? Did your mum and dad say how they felt about it as well?
Well, I'm a Tottenham boy. I know you're Arsenal. I'm a Tottenham boy, and at the time, Spurs come in for me as well. So I would have loved to have gone to Spurs, but no, I just think it's a different era in them days. I just loved playing football, and I enjoyed playing football. Obviously, being attracted to a club and that it was good, but it wasn't one where you think you're a superstar straight away or something like that. And no, I just enjoyed it. I just went there, trained. We trained at South Ruislip then days, and next to the running club next to Welwyn Scrubs in West London. They're the two places we trained. It's quite hard for me mum as well because my dad didn't drive hardly, so my mum had to take me. And in them days there was no M25, so it was all on the North Circular. And sometimes it used to take 2 or 3 hours to get to Ruislip and that. But yeah, it just progressed from then. I just enjoyed playing football. Was fortunate to play for the county, London schoolboys, etc. And there's some good players in them days. So just enjoyed it.
So I mean, going into QPR, what was that like the first day going into there to train in there and start playing for them?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I was signed by manager Gordon Jago, and that's when QPR had a really good side. I think they come second twice in the first division. I went there, signed schoolboys. Then I was apprentice at 15 and a half, second year apprentice at 16 and a half, and I signed professional forms at 17. In that interim period, Gordon Jago left, went to Tampa Bay Rowdies with Rodney Marsh, and a few of the other players went, and Dave Sexton took over. And I suppose, from that day on, I just never figured into his plans. I was sort of a midfield player, attacker, and he was playing me right back, etc. I always tell a little story. He was taking a combination game, and I come in, and he said, "Oh, you're playing right back today, Nick." And I said, "Dave," I said, I don't play right back. He went, "You're right, son. You don't get your clothes off and F off home." And that's a true story. And from that day, I went home and told my dad. I was only sort of 16, and my dad said, "Look, you should just play whatever position anyone wanted to play." And then from that time on, I'd done pretty well at QPR, got a professional contract, thought I'd have another one in the pipeline, and lo and behold, he let me go. So that's just the way it went. We had good players. We had Clive Allen, Paul Goddard in our side. Not just saying it. Hopefully, I think I was as good as them at the time. So yeah, you get disillusioned. So basically, I didn't play football game for about 6 to 9 months. Just played tennis.
That was a good side, that QPR side at the time, with Clive Allen, like you say, and Jerry Francis would have been around that time then.
Well, that side at the time, I mean, they had like Phil Parkes was in the England side,
Yeah.
they had Dave Clemency, Ian Gillard, Frank McClintock, Don Masson, Jerry Francis, Dave Thomas, Stan Bowles. It was an incredible side. In hindsight, I shouldn't really have signed for them. I should have probably gone, I don't know, Arsenal or Spurs or someone like that, which would have been easier to get into the side. It was around, I think at the time, there's probably only about 23, 24 pros at the club at the time. We had Tony Tagg on the fringe, Phil Nutt on the fringe of it, Ronnie Abbott, Martin Busby, all sort of in and out. So also all good players. They eventually went off to Millwall, Fulham, etc., etc. But I think when you're at that age and you just get disillusioned, you just got disillusioned. And you think, your world's dropped out. And unfortunately, Mum and Dad didn't really know much about football. They said, hey, look, there's plenty of clubs around. Get your head up, fight and get on with it. Instead, I suppose it affected me a little bit, really, and didn't play for a while. So I had a couple of trials I went to Luton, went to Peterborough, Northampton, all wanted to sign me. But unfortunately, I think my wage at QPR at that time was £16 a week. That was my wage. And I think the best offer I got from any of them to go pro was £30. I explained to David Pleat, I couldn't even afford to get to Luton and back on that money. So there, I just didn't play for a while, and I was fortunate. One of the coaches at QPR at the time was Eddie McCluskey, obviously one of the best FA coaches around, worked for the FA, and he was manager at Barking, and he kept ringing me up saying, come to Barking. I said, oh, no, I'm not going to play, Ed, not going to play. And then eventually I went there, really enjoyed it. He paid me more money I was offered than the other professional clubs. Went to Barking, won the league, FA Cup third round, non-league team of the year. So I stayed there for about 18 months. Then he got the Enfield job. Then I went to Enfield and played there for 9 seasons. Yeah. So it's funny how it just changes.
With an old friend of mine, Tony Jennings.
Tony Jennings,
yeah.
Absolutely. He looked after me. When I was young, well, I was 18 and a half and I was at Enfield, and we were the first 2 players from sort of the southern area to get chosen for the non-league side. And he was actually captain at the time. And he looked after me, and he was just a legend in himself.
Yeah, I got to know Tony really well when I was editor of Team Talk magazine with Tony Williams and that. And lovely bloke, Jeno. And we played together a little bit, and we had the magazine had our own sort of our own side, and he played centre half alongside me, and I did all his running for him. But
he was a frightening character, though.
A lovely character, lovely bloke.
Nicest bloke in the world off the pitch, but on the pitch, I don't think you wanted to cross him. He was a leader of men. You know, when we first went to the England non-league side, some players saying, "Oh, what does he do? What does he do?" You know, he's not really a good player. And to be honest, he just went through the game, not really doing a lot, but organising everyone. And they used to say to me, "If you don't win us the game today, I'll be on you." And led us at Wembley in '82, and that he was just, and his wife Sandra. It's a shame he's not here now. Yeah. It's a terrible shame.
Yeah, it is.
What was it like, though? I mean, as a youngster, back in those sort of Queen's Park Rangers days, there, when you think you might get a new contract and all the rest of it. Did it really feel like, as some people say, that your world had sort of just fallen apart from you? When they come in and they tell you something completely different to what you was expecting maybe to hear?
Yeah, well, I thought I'd done really well. Probably one of the best players in the combination side at the time. On the fringe of the first team, I think, at times. And I'll never forget, I was in the injury room, and I was with Ron Abbott, and just talking to him, and he went, "Oh yeah, got me a new contract. Have you got yours?" And I went, "No." And then I thought, it's sort of like things are just going over in my mind. I thought, I ain't going to get a contract if they've got theirs and I haven't. And from that moment on, you feel, you sort of wasted 7 years of your life. I've been there since 11 to sort of 18, and you think, what's your next step? it was a brilliant club, brilliantly run, played great, attractive football, sort of the club, I wanted to stay at. And when, I think 7 or 8 of us got released at that time, and some really good players got released. Nicky Evans, who was at Barnet, got released. Excellent player. Tony Martin, Stevie Adams, really, really good players that, with the right little bit of nurturing, I think would have all gone and played Football League. But you've got to take into consideration, though, the money at that time is nothing like it is now. So if you finished at 32 and you never had a trade, you got another 30 years to try and provide finance for your family and everything. So I was fortunate. My dad was in the meat trade, so I left and went and worked Smithfield Market. So I got a trade behind me, went into non-league, and really enjoyed it. It was only later on, when you got to 35, 36, that the really good money started coming into the non-league and people earned good money. But yeah, at the time you needed to earn money, and you had a mortgage to pay, you had bills to pay. But it was gut wrenching, really. It's hard to describe, and I can understand some of these youngsters now. I had a lot of Welwyn over the last 3 years come over. They got released by pro clubs, and they generally feel their world has fallen apart. The only difference I would say is, in them days, if you're an apprentice or a first year pro or that, you had a really good foot into becoming a professional footballer. Whereas now, I think the clubs chuck a blanket over about 200 kids and try and get one out of that too. So you've got a lot more that are disappointed than they were in my day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was it the case of, though, with that as well? Do you think it was confidence as well for yourself, when you've had sort of confidence kicked out of you by that decision, that it took you a bit longer as well to get back into it? I know you said you had offers from other clubs, but would it have been a case of, as well, at that age, sort of having that sort of confidence of, can I still do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? Type that thing in your head?
It's quite a hard question to ask, because really, I think when you're 16, 17, 18, you're maturing as a player. I know there's a lot of players now like Bellingham and Rooney that come along. I think I was not ultra confident when I was that age. I only really got confident when I got to Barking, played under Eddie, really enjoyed it, played really well. And I blossomed as a footballer then. And I just don't think they saw me coming to the level I should have got to. And that's just an opinion thing. Some people mature at 21. My Dave Kitson, who was a player, he didn't really mature to professional to his 21. I had him 17, 18, 19. So again, I think all these people individually, I think if you're a coach or a manager, that's something you have to take on board. When do people mature? When do they not? Are they happy in the team? Are they happy not? But yeah, at that young age, I think it's just a kick in the teeth. But yeah, it is business, isn't it? It's business. So players come, players go. Players play well for some managers, they don't for other managers. That's just the way it is.
You mentioned a player who I knew a bit, Nicky Evans, when he came to Kettering, because I was involved with Kettering, and he was a terrific player. I mean, what surprised me is, I'm not saying it because you're sat there, but I saw you a lot, and Tony Jennings used to wax lyrical about you, and I thought you were one of the best midfield players in non-league football at the time. And Nicky Evans was another fantastic player. I was really surprised that neither of you went back into league football.
Nicky Evans was, this is hard to believe. When Nicky was at QPR, he was a centre half.
Really?
Centre half, yeah. You wouldn't believe that. But he was centre half. He had a great engine on him. Nicest bloke in the world. Obviously, I used to get the train into King's Cross because he lived up at Kettering up that way. And when he left and went to Kettering, I knew he was on quite good money. But as I said earlier on, I was offered £30 to go to Luton as a pro. It's not even Liverpool, sum of money. So when you went to non-league and they looked after you, I had an opportunity to get a job, learn a trade, and go from that avenue. Now it's completely different. You've got youngsters on £5,000 a week, so you would just keep pursuing that and endeavouring to try and get back into the Football League. I seen really good offers, to go. I must have had 5 or 6. Alan Carsdad, who was Northampton manager. We played them in the FA Cup, and I really had a great game. He said, "Now I want to sign you straight away." And then he found out what I was getting on. You know, my wages were at Enfield. He went, "I can't get anywhere near it." And that is just a fact. You know, I know Enfield was subsidised by the Starlight Rooms at the time, and probably that Enfield side we had could have played the Football League easily. And you know, probably at the time would have got second division, I would imagine. But again, you know, it was a wonderful time to be at the club. You know, it was noticeable as well. Every time we played in the FA Cup, we always used to get to the third round. You know, a lot, and beat all the teams. Newport. I mean, we lost to Crystal Palace from the first division them days. We were 2-1 up with about 5 minutes to go, and Vince Lair got 2 goals from the halfway line and beat us. So we weren't a million miles away from it. And but yeah, it was nice to say about. I played with another player that was ridiculously good, a bloke named Noel Ashford, great player, Keith Barrett. They would walk into the Football League now, absolutely walk into it, you know, and Steve King's another player. So you look at it at that time, and, you know, I think if they were here in this era, they'd be playing Football League easy.
So what was when you went to Barnet? I mean, was it the feeling of sort of, I don't know, being a bit overjoyed that you're back involved in, you know, in football at that sort of level? And I mean, and also, what was it like in that cup run with Barnet?
Yeah, we had you know, some great times at Barnet. Obviously, I was at Enfield for a while, and they were sort of below us at the time. But then Stan Flashman took over Barnet, and they started getting all the better players. So 4 or 5 of us went from Enfield. There, Barry, great manager. You know, it's just everything off the cuff, but very enjoyable to play for him. No restrictions. You know, it's a bit of a shame they are where they are now, because where they got to, we had a great cup run. You know, we come runners up twice in the league, and then we won the league. So them years are all good years. You're playing with quality players again, you know, and people say, you know, it's a good team, but when you're playing with better players, it makes you a better player as well. You're on the same wavelength, and you know, I'm fortunate to play for 2 excellent sides, Enfield and Barnet, in their heydays.
What was that like? I mean, was you involved in the Enfield side then when they used to be able to sort of almost should be getting promoted from as it is now the National League, and it was that still on the days of the voting system?
Yeah, we won the league in 83 and 86, and out the 92 votes, I think we got 1, and the team that was relegated each time got the other 91. That's how it was. And so basically, it didn't matter if you won it or not. And I think the non-league teams in that understood that. I mean, really, that Enfield side, if they were promoted then in that 83 or 85, where would they be now? I don't know. You know, I think they could have been, you know, a big North London club, because every week we used to get 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 if Spurs and Arsenal were away. You know, I mean, we used to play Barnet. I mean, the reverse fixtures, there was 7,000 to 10,000 people there on a Boxing Day on a New Year's Day. I mean, you don't get that in, you know, Div 2, Div 1, you know, fixtures now. So, yeah, it was just a different era. You know, it's just enjoyable. It was. There's not all the PC there is now. You know, it's a little bit more volatile, a bit more aggressive. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the cut and thrust of it. You know, and the players I played with, they're still friends now. You know, 40, 50 years ago, they're still my friends. So it was good. Really enjoyed it.
I mean, tell us about, have you got any stories of your days, you know, at Enfield and Barnet? I mean, any sort of memories that come to mind?
Oh, Christ, got loads of them. Loads of them. Barnet was a very volatile dressing room. Obviously, there was some times when certain things happened, certain fights occurred. Barry was sacked, and then Barry was in the crowd. Then he was reinstated, and Stan come in, and you know, with his heavies and all that. You know, I can remember playing games when, you know, a big rivalry game, and some cash was thrown on the table if we won that game. That's your bonus for today, lads. So yeah, it was. There's some great stories. I played with some great players. You know, some of them not here now. You know, Johnny Docker passed away. Keith Alexandra passed away. Even recently, Martin Gittins passed away. So yeah, there's a lot of characters in them days, but I found them all, honest, straight. The camaraderie was great. When I was at Enfield, we used to have massive rivalries with Wealdstone. There was punch-ups in the tunnel, punch-ups in the bar. There was a big rivalry between them at the time. And they were a good side in them days as well. When Paul Boget was at Wealdstone, they had the Cordice brothers, so we had a big rivalry with them. So yeah, there's some great ones. I don't know if I can go into too much detail of some of them, but I might be done for slander. But yeah, so basically in them days it was sort of a conference. So sometimes on a Tuesday night we might have to go and play Barrow away or Altrincham away, something like that. So you'd have to leave work at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, go up by coach, and get sometimes back 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was working down Smithfield Market at the time, so I used to go straight to work. So the camaraderie and the spirit we had then days was, in my opinion, what made us successful teams. The spirit then was superb. It's like when you manage or coach now, you can have all the best players, all the best ability, all the best coaching systems, but you need players with heart that want to go and win. And when things are a little bit rough and not going your way, to dig in. And that's the big item I think that's changed in football nowadays.
I don't know whether you agree or not, but I felt as the early days of the conference, when it was the Alliance Premier League, basically.
Yeah, it was the Gola League originally.
Yeah, well, the Alliance Premier League, that was how it originally started. I thought the standard then was fantastic. I thought it was better then, early days, than it went on to be later in the 80s, late 80s and whatever. But I mean, the sides in it then were fantastic. Like you say, you got the northern sides who we only used to play against in cup games before then, and the London sides again, because the Southern League was basically the big league at the time, and then you've got the Eastern League and the Northern Premier League. But so you didn't get the chance to play those sort of sides other than FA Cup or trophy games. And when you put them all together, I think fantastic. Those early first 4, 5, 6 years were great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, when we're in the Isthmian League, the 2 teams come out that were Dagenham and Enfield. Yeah. And you're right, the Southern League I think was stronger in them days because we had that inter-league competition. And we played against the Southern League. We lost 3-0, but you had Maidstone, you had Wealdstone, really good sides. And I think about, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them went into the Alliance League then, and we only had Enfield and Dagenham from us, and then it was made out of Midland sides. But the teams that were really good, Telford were a very good side then days.
Kettering,
obviously.
Of course. Huh? Kettering, of course.
Kettering, yeah, they were very good. I was in the side with Stuart Chapman. Do you remember Stuart Chapman? Yeah, he was there from Kettering. They were very good. Obviously, Runcorn, another very good side. Barrow were a good side in them days. So yeah, I think the quality. People say to me now, "Oh, what was the quality like then?" In my opinion, it was miles better than it is now. And that filters down to the leagues that we are now. Okay, step 3 and step 4, it's okay as a standard, but you look at some of the players in it and, the fitness level and the intelligence level. I just don't think it's anywhere like it was nowadays. People say I'm a bit of a dinosaur or a bit biased, but that's how I see it. I mean, the actual but you remember in them days as well, in that Alliance Premier, a lot of the players were ex-professional.
Yeah.
So most of them had been released. I mean, Keith Barrett was released by Tottenham. How he had never made it back into program is one of the biggest mysteries ever. Yeah. He was just like a Rolls Royce, So you look at that and you look at it is now, but everyone's now got the ambitions, the young kids, to get back into Football League because obviously there's big money.
Yeah, that's the difference, isn't it? With non-league in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s and 80s, where you've got good ex-pros, older ex-pros coming in because the money wasn't around in the pro days then, and they could get decent money playing in non-league football. But now you only get the young kids released 16, 17, 18 that come into non-league, don't you? That's the
absolutely, and they haven't really got the experience or the nous or the strength to actually go straight into that non-league. I mean, when I was at QPR, you know, when I was a pro, the highest paid pro at QPR was £500 a week.
Yeah.
£500 a week, you know, and you look at that now, and it was a set standard. The apprentices got £8, the second year apprentice is 16. I think when you're pro, you got 32, and that was the standard thing.
We'll be able to get petrol for that now.
You can't even get a gallon now. It's £9 a gallon.
But so, I think it's a shame though, because I mean, in my younger days, I'm a bit older than you, but I mean, before I went to Swansea, that, you know, I used to watch Kettering in the 60s and 70s, late 60s, and you'd watch people like John Charles playing for Merthyr, you know, and Ivor Allchurch and Jimmy Greaves playing for, you know, Barnet.
George Best at Dunstable.
Yeah. Well, and you know, you just don't get those type of players now coming down into non-league football. No. And it's just a shame, I think.
Yeah. I think the whole nature of football has changed. I think where I don't think people are over, you know, zealous about playing football now. It's, you know, take it or leave it. It's a product. It's a way to earn money. Whereas I think in our days, I think it was more of a passion, more of a love. You know, as Bill Shankly says, you die to play football. But now I think, especially coaching and some of the players that come in, they're deluded and they think, you know, you owe them something, and they haven't even performed, but they're asking for ridiculous money. Whereas it's not like that. I just think it needs to go back to how it was a little bit in our day. I sound a bit archaic, but, you know, some of the players that come to you, they're totally deluded, or they've been told by a scout or a coach or a manager that they're this, and that. But I've always stuck by one thing for the whole of my career, right? I've never, ever deferred away from what my eyes tell me. And that's, I've always, you know, it's like a horse. People say this, if that horse is good and it goes past the line first, that doesn't lie. Same with footballers. I get lots of people say, oh, this football is football. I think, Christ, what are you watching? You know, and I just stuck by it, you know.
Nick, when did you stop being the player then and move into the management side of it? And also as well, I suppose on the second question, you just mentioned there about, you know, and you hear it quite a lot from, you know, very experienced managers like yourself, you know, really what players are actually asking you for. Do you think with what we just laughed about just a minute ago about petrol and stuff like that, that's going to get even worse this season, 22, 23?
I would imagine the rate of inflation at the moment, the cost of living, is only going to push up, you know, players' demands for wages. But will it be viable? You know, will the crowds be? You know, it's £10 to get in to watch, you know, a local team. You know, plus a drink, maybe a burger, you might do 25 quid. Take 2 kids, you know, that could cost you 60 quid, 70 quid. Have people got that money? So that is a point that I can't see that getting better until the economy gets better. People have, you know, more spare cash, etc. But a lot of people, I think the players just got to be a little bit more understanding. I've always gone from the notion that if I haven't got it, I can't pay you it, and that's it. But so my pretext when I talk to players, I'll give you everything I've got. Everything, every penny I'll give you. I can't give any more if I haven't got it. And that's it. And, you know, the budget we had at Welwyn, the team we had was ridiculous for the budget I had. So I know there's no other team in that league that had the team we had for the budget we're on. Nowhere near it.
How did you stop playing? So what happened for you to stop playing and then move into the management side of it?
Well, what happened was when I was at Borehamwood for a while, Bob Makin and Phil Wallace, who's now the chairman of Stevenage. So I played there for a while. So I was sort of player coach there up to about 34, 35. And then I give up for about 6 months. They were changing what they wanted to do at Borehamwood, etc. So I did nothing. Then I had a phone call from Eddie, who was the manager at Harlow at the time. Said, will you come over and be player coach? So I said, okay. I went over there. I was sort of 35 at the time. Suffered from 1 or 2 calf injuries, which I'd had for the last 5 or 6 years. really enjoyed it. Done really well. We obviously got promoted. If you see Eddie, tell him I got him that promotion. So, but I was sort of 35, 36 there, still playing, still pretty fit, still doing all right. And then I played there till I was about 37, 38. Eddie wanted me to have another year, and I went, Ed, the legs can't do it, mate. I think I've had enough. 38, that was it. So I just said, right, that's it. I'm retired, come home. And that was in the summer. In November, someone rang me up and said, I'm the chairman of Varsity Football Club. I said, look, no disrespect. Never even heard of you. They said, oh, yeah, we just won the Varsity, etc., etc. Would like you to become our manager. I went, well, I've only coached. I've been assistant manager, but I've never managed. So they said, come over, have a look. It was in their old ground, which they had 4 months to go. They were bottom of the league. Got them to stay up. Won 6 out the last 12 games to keep us up. Then they moved to the new ground, which was the ground they're in now, and stayed there for 8 years. Got four
lovely ground, that, isn't it? But,
they've let it go. They've let it go a little bit now, but at that time it was magnificent.
There's some nice
really
people there, though. With people like John Alban and really nice people there.
John Alban, absolute legend.
Yeah.
Never ever will I get a football secretary like him. Never. Absolutely superb, the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the committee there, they had 26 people on the committee, all volunteers, no stone was unturned, run really professional. And then probably the best chairman I've ever come into contact with, a guy named Brian Ellis. Coming absolutely unreal. He just let me do what I want to do, sign what I wanted to sign. And I was pretty fortunate. I had 5 or 6 going to the Football League from there. Obviously now we know how good they are. At the time we didn't. And, as the manager, I'm very demanding. I got rid of Dave Kitson about 3 times, but he kept coming back. And, he's done well. Shane Blackett, Jack Midson, Craig McKell-Smith. I was really fortunate the players I got. Hopefully I improved them. They all went on and done really, really well.
So, I mean, what division were Aylesbury when you joined them?
Owsley.
Sorry. Owsley.
Yeah.
What?
They were in the South Midlands. That's step 5, bottom of it. At 1 point out of 14 games. So, first manager job, obviously didn't really know if I'd get him out of it. Obviously, I said I would get him out of it. No disrespect to the team I inherited, absolutely abysmal. Out of 24 players, I kept 1, and that was the goalkeeper, Nicky Folks. He was the only one I kept. Brought in a lot of players I knew. Still didn't do well for the first 5 or 6 games, but we weren't losing 5-0. We were losing 3-2, 2-1, etc. So we were slowly changing it. And then I brought in 4 probably big changes. I brought Billy Harrigan, who was the captain of Bournemouth at the time, and I made him player assistant manager. And I brought 3 boys from Harlow. I brought Kev Culverhouse, Johnny Scott, and Scotty Nixon. So they were all at Harlow at the time. And then the icing on the cake, I got Greg Pike, the centre forward from there. And just changed our fortunes completely. So he ended up 13th that year. Next year, we won that league, went into Div 3, won that league, went into Div 2, won that league, then they split it north and south, Isthmian north and south. So then it was a little bit harder. And then I was losing players, obviously, to other clubs who just doubled their salary, which we couldn't compete with. But we had good runs in the FA Cup, got down to the quarterfinals of the FA Trophy, beat 3 conference sides that year. Obviously went out to Exeter in the quarterfinals, which was 9,000 people there. Really, really enjoyable. Great times at the club. Changed the team every probably 2 years. So I had 3 or 4 different sides. And then I just come to enough of my boys were getting to an age where I needed to give them a bit of time. So I said to Brian, I'm resigning. He tried to talk me out of it, but I'm quite stubborn and I just resigned, and that was it. And I didn't manage them for another 4 years. I took my boys both played for Nebworth Youth, so I took them. We went to the EJA and done well there. We had 6 players go to Luton, 3 to Barnet, so it was good stepping stone. Didn't really have any intention of getting back into football, and then I got a phone call from Spencer Knight, fun enough. and said, we're in a bit of trouble, would you fancy that? So that's all. I've been out of it for 4 years. So I went down and watched the game, and I think they lost 5-0. They're awful. Mike Varney was the chairman, and I just introduced myself to Mike and that, and then he said, come and have a chat. Took that over. Unbelievable players we had there. We had a young mixture, my boy even playing at 17, and then we had like 30-odd-year-olds, and stayed up. Ended up 7th that year, 6th the following year. Tried to get some more money at the club. Mike did, couldn't do it. And then they were taken over by someone else, and then I resigned again. Went back to Islesley about a year later. Bob Making, CEO Stevenage, took that over. Lasted 4 months. Couldn't really get on with the people at the club. Try and interfere, etc. So I was actually sacked by them. They sacked me. So again, I didn't do anything for probably 2-3 years, and then I went and watched my boy. He was playing at Welwyn City, and then the job come up, so I just put my CV in.
Did you find that? Did you find when you were going back a little bit, when you said you were out of football for 4 years or so, when you were looking after watching your boys and stuff? Did you find it then hard when you went back in with the player sort of contacts? In terms of, because it's all managing is all about player contact. Let's face it, isn't it? It's all about knowing the players, know who you want and where they are and whatever. But did you find it difficult being out of it for a while?
It's quite Steve. It's really it was as if I'd never been away. Really? Honestly, it was as if I'd never been away. Obviously, I knew some of the players through my son. I played in various teams. So I knew lots of contacts. Spencer Knight played for me, Ricky Gray, Steve Baston, John Stevenson. They'd all played for me anyway at various clubs. So I've always got, as Dave said earlier, I've got a big book of names and players that obviously some I wanted, obviously you can't afford. Some didn't want to play for you. You're not the right manager for them. But yeah, I found it pretty simple. Yeah, it's just pretty simple, especially going back to Welwyn. I had about, when I took that job over, I probably had 6 players at Welwyn when I took it over. And then over the next sort of 12 months, I had players come in, other players I wanted to get. And yeah, it was just, the last 3 years at Welwyn, it's just been seamless. It's just been really good. I've attracted some really good players. Team spirit's been phenomenal. The football I think we played is great. And for us to have been in the playoff 3 years on the trot, when I first took the job, the remit was don't get relegated. And I, that's not for me. I said, well, I want to try and get us as high as we can in the league, regardless what the budget is, etc. I was fortunate to have my boy as well, who has progressed an awful lot.
George.
Yeah, he's progressed an awful lot in the last 3 years. So my midfield I had at the time was Dave Keeney's side, excellent player. I had Ben Spall, captain Jesse Walklin, and George. There's not a better midfield in my opinion in that league than that. Always struggle a bit up front because they're the ones that cost all the money. But towards the end, I've got John Clements back. He got 15 goals for me in 18 games. Jordan Watson, who Dave knows, got 20 goals for me. And we were solid at the back. So, yeah, it was good. I've had players obviously come and go. Some players were recommended to me. You have a half inkling if they'll be good or not. After 5 or 6 games, you realise they're not for you. They're not the character that you want. And I said earlier on, you can have the players and they have the ability, but have they got the character, or will they give you that extra yard when you need it? Which in our league last year, the best team was Bedford. They were physically strong, very good manager in Gary, top lad, knows the game, knows the players he wants, plays a certain way. Don't give nothing away at the back. Obviously, got over 100 goals, I think. So yeah, that's the bit of luck you have. Sometimes you get a bit of luck. But there again, I lost my centre half, Carl Mintzer, who come on leaps and bounds in 3 years, but he went to Royston. So you lose players along the way. But that's a good sign, really, because they've bettered themselves, gone on to step 3, step 2 clubs, which is good. But yeah, you build up a little bit portfolio when you get back into it again, and you know, you get players come out of the woodwork somewhere, and you think, oh, he might look okay, or he's okay, and yeah, they're good players. And you know, I'm really big on the camaraderie, though. If you haven't got that spirit of camaraderie, you never get to where you want to get. And that's my big. And I'm not the easiest person to play for. I'm really demanding. You know, I come a little bit slack at times, but you know, we played Waltham Abbey last year. We were 4-0 up at half time, and I ripped into them at the half time, and they are that one or two had a few words back. Oh, we'll win this 8-0. I said, yeah, I'll tell you what, you won't win that 8-0 on that performance. We're 4-0 up. I said, yeah, but you were crap. I said, so don't let that scoreline kid you. And we ended up winning 5-3. So we lost the second half 3-1. So I had a joke with the captain about that, who you know, I said, look, I'm not always right, but I'm right again. So we just laughed about it. But yeah, the spirit we had was good. It's just, unfortunately, all unfolded poorly at the end with the ground grading and that. And, you know, we'd gone 20 games unbeaten. And we got the news that our ground was going to be not graded to grade D, and we wouldn't have been in the playoffs. So that was we then lost 3 out of 4, which is sort of unthinkable. Everyone's minds, even my own mind, I thought, what is the point? Had the appeal, won the appeal, thought, great, we now are in a position, if we win our last game by a certain amount of goals, etc. We went down to Kidderton and beat them 7-1. So we were obviously in the playoffs, and you know, Northley actually lost to Colney, which was a bit of a shock. So we were in the playoffs, and then I got a phone call on the Sunday morning, 12 o'clock, saying they've the alliance meeting from the FA have decided you're not going to be in the playoffs regardless. So that was I felt very, very low at the time, very, very low for myself, but also very, very low for the players, because for 3 years they'd given me everything. And some of them are now at the age 30, 31. They might not ever get another chance to go and play step 3. Hopefully they do, but they might not. So
I mean, what? I mean, it all unfolded very quickly, didn't it? It was a very much like, say, the end of the season. It was very much like a seesaw thing. 1 minute you were in the playoffs, then you were out of the playoffs, then you were in the playoffs, then you're out of the playoffs. It was backwards and forwards constantly. Like no one seemed to know what was going on. I did a weekly chat as I normally do with Paul at Weir. You know, and we were talking in his program, and he's going, well, for me, you know, Welwyn Garden City are dangerous, etc., etc., etc. We've got to be careful what's going on. And then next week it was, oh well, you know, I'm not sure what's going on, but they're no longer in it. And then the next week we chatted, and it was sort of backwards and forwards on that. And he always see you as the biggest threat going into those playoffs as well. But I mean, for yourself, I mean, was it? Did you get an explanation from the Alliance Committee in the end of why that was the case, that they decided to take you out, even though that, you know, you'd got the ground grading now? So why were you not in it?
Yeah, well, basically, how I see it, we had a certain time the club to get the work done. There were some mitigating circumstances where what they wanted done overrun from one person seeing it to another person seeing it. So with the COVID as well, there was a problem. So how I see it, I think the FA, they admitted they mucked up a bit, and I think the club, you know, again, should have done the work they should have done. But getting to the crux of it, how I see it was, by the 31st of March, if that work wasn't done, right, you didn't get the ground grading. So instead of being relegated, right, and not being in the playoffs, they give us the extra month to do the work for the club, okay? But then behind the scenes, we were never ever going to be in the playoffs, in my eyes, because it wasn't signed off by the 31st of March. So I think they were hoping, when they give us the appeal, but we'd won the appeal, I think they were hoping we were going to lose our game or draw, and Northley were going to win, right? And obviously it backfired, so they had to have an emergency meeting and chucked us out. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, feel we'd been promoted, because at the time we'd gone on 20 games unbeaten, playing really well. Okay, when we had the bad news, we'd lost 3 out of 4. But then that last game we played, we won 7-1. We were unplayable, honestly unplayable. And to compound it, the team that took our place, who weren't even in the playoffs, got promoted.
Did you not think that was sod's law as soon as it happened though? Because I did. As soon as I saw that they were going to be in there awfully, I spoke on camera, off camera to Paul and said to him, look, as far as I'm concerned, I know you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but they've got to be the favourites to win it now because they're going to do a Denmark.
I actually believe, I know what you're saying, I believe any of them 4 sides that are in the playoffs could have won on their day. Burko on their day were good. Dunstable were very hard to beat. Ware on their day are good. And so were North Lee. So I just think momentum at the time would have favoured us. I really do think would have favoured us. But I think from their perspective, they got a second chance. And I think they've all got together and say, look, we've been given this chance. This is what we got to take. And, they took it. I saw the goals they got in the playoff. Very, very good goals. I mean, they're the 2 hardest fixtures. Away to Burko, which I think were beatable by any of the other teams. And away to Ware. And Ware have got a very good away record, but they've lost quite a few games at home. So, I think it panned out well for them. And yeah, you can't legislate for the 2 goals they got against Ware, which were unbelievable on the day. And I feel for Paul because, he's worked hard. But the only time you're going to guarantee his definite promotion is like Bedford done, wasn't it? I mean, it's seen a lot of the time. Some teams have been promoted, like I think Grimsby 11 or 12 points behind Solihull Motors. I don't know. I don't actually agree with the playoff system. I never have. I believe it's not a cup competition; it's a league competition. So wherever you are in the league, unfortunate for Burko, they've had 3 great years like us, but they've been in second position all the time. I feel for them really because in my eyes they're the ones who should have been promoted because they've come second.
Yeah, because they're the second best team in the league, basically, aren't they?
By 10 points, yeah. And that's how I believe. So yeah, I feel a bit sorry for Chris and Burko, but obviously everyone knows the rules beforehand. And for us to get into the playoff position was always our target for the last 3 years on there. And, without COVID, we would have been in there. And yeah, you've got to have a bit of luck. Obviously, our luck ran out.
So where's your future at then, Nick? What are you looking to do?
I'd like to get back into the game. But the offers I had aren't right for me. And not that I've had a load. I've had 2 or 3. I had more when I was in the job at Welwyn. So that's how ironic it was. But I don't really want to go to a team that's a long way away from here. Like I have to get 45 minutes to get to, or a team that's gone into the league that's gone north or something like that. So there's a lot of local teams around this area. And if nothing comes up and it doesn't suit me, so be it. I'll go and watch me boy or some of the other players that are going to other clubs. And if something does come up, I'll sit down and talk to the people and see where it takes us.
Is it one of those things for you, like a bit what you were saying? I think what Steve was sort of saying earlier on, even though you're out of the game at the moment, it's still a case of you, a bit of watchy, looky, making sure you're looking at what players are around. If you still have a job, but maybe by the beginning of the season, you're looking around, still sort of making mental notes of where players are, what players are doing, etc., etc. So if you do get into, say, local sides to us, and I'm assuming those local sides would be people like Waltham Abbey and Harlows and Wares and Hertford Towns and teams of that ilk around that sort of area, you've still got that in Black Book updated, shall we say, to know where it is?
Yeah, Dave, to be honest, I think out of all the players I had at Welwyn, I think there's only so far 4 that re-signed. I don't know who else will sign, but obviously there's a nucleus of players there. They're not really my players, but they sort of are my players, even though they play for the club, that I think would come and play for me wherever I went. At the moment, I know there's numerous players talking to other clubs, and whoever gets them players would be very, very fortunate because they're very, very good players. And they'll probably go to clubs and get what they're actually worth financially wise as well. But yeah, who's to know? If I got another club, would they come? Would they not? I'd hope some of them would. Some of them might not. They might enjoy where they are. It's all down to the players, whatever club they go to, if they enjoy it. I've left 3 or 4 good youngsters at Welwyn have re-signed, who I think have got a good future. Hopefully, Max can get the best out of them with other recruits that he's got there. They do well. It's a tough league. It's a tough league they've gone into. Sometimes, you know, the youngsters take a little bit of bedding. I was really pleased with Cyrus towards the end of the year. He's come on leaps and bounds, just gets his scoring average up, and again, he'll be a good player. So yeah, I think every team at the moment, they're all trying to get the same sort of players. They're all ringing up. I know my son's had loads of offers. Again, I don't know what he's going to do yet. He's going to leave another couple of weeks, and we'll sit down and decide what he wants to do. And some of the other players have asked for my advice and asked me to put them in contact with other teams, which I've just given them the numbers of the managers. So really, it's just a case of watching this space. But it doesn't surprise me that lots of teams come in for the players, because they are very good players, and they could play a lot higher, really. I mean, a lot of them play for me, I suppose, a bit out of loyalty, really, and friendship as well. You know, I've known a lot of them for, you know, 4 or 5 years and that. So yeah, we'll just see what happens, see if they're happy. You know yourself, you go to a club, you're sometimes happy at that club, and you just bed straight into it, or sometimes you don't. And that's happened with players that come to me. You know, they haven't bedded in correctly, and they look for another club. So you always got to be wary, though, of players that are, you know, have about 5 or 6 clubs in 3 years. Always there's the alarm bells ringing for me. But you never know. You never know.
Well, listen, Nick, it's been fantastic talking to you. Really enjoyed the last hour or so with you, and I wish you all the best. Hopefully you get back in the game very, very soon, and stay there, because I've got one question to ask you off air as well. But I mean, literally, I mean, you know, fantastic for you, and hopefully your career goes on longer and longer and longer. But from me and Steve, thank you for watching again My Life in Football. And well, when this goes out on air, we might not look like this, because we'd have been to the Southern League do on the Saturday night before, so who knows what we look like by then. But until the next time we meet, a massive thank you to Nick, and good night from me, and good night from Steve.
Cheers, Steve. Thanks a lot, matey.